Dr. Eunice stared at her screen for a long time. The numbers made no sense. She checked them again, then a third time. Her coffee grew cold beside her as the truth slowly settled into her mind. Like a heavy stone, something was coming. She had spent 15 years watching the stars from the STRs. She had seen comets, asteroids, and the distant flicker of pulsars. But she had never seen anything like this. Thousands of objects, moving together, slowing down as they approached the solar system. They were not natural. They could not be natural. Her hand shook as she reached for her phone. 3 hours later, the world knew. Every government, every military, every person with a television or phone learned the same terrible truth. Humanity was not alone in the universe. And whatever was coming did not seem friendly. Captain Doyen stood at the window of Sentinel-7, Earth's largest orbital defense station. Below him, the blue planet turned slowly, beautiful and fragile. He had spent 20 years protecting it from threats he could see and understand. Terrorists, rogue nations, asteroid fragments. But this was different. This was something from nightmares. The fleet emerged from the darkness of space like a swarm of metal insects. 8,000 ships. Some were small, the size of buildings. Others were massive beyond understanding, larger than cities, larger than countries. They blocked out the stars as they approached. Admiral Taiwan's voice came through the communication system, tired and grim. All stations, this is command. Hold positions. Do not fire unless fired upon. We are attempting communication. Communication. Doyen almost laughed. Humanity's entire fleet was 200 ships. Their biggest vessel was smaller than the enemy's smallest. What would they communicate? Please don't kill us? The answer came soon enough. Every screen on Earth, every phone, every computer, every billboard flickered at the same moment. A face appeared. It was not human. The skin was pale gray, the eyes black and cold, the features sharp like carved stone. When it spoke, the words came in every human language at once, perfect and clear. I am High Sovereign Malthois of the Valoran Empire. Your world is now claimed. Your species is now subject to imperial law. You have one standard day to surrender all military assets and government authority. Resistance will result in extinction. Compliance will result in survival. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. The face disappeared, and across the world. 7 billion people tried to understand what they had just heard in the emergency bunker beneath Geneva. World leaders argued and shouted and wept. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender. Some simply sat in silence, unable to process the end of everything they knew. Admiral Taiwan watched them all, his face like iron. He had fought in 3 wars. He had buried friends and sent young soldiers to their deaths. But he had always believed that sacrifice meant something, that courage could win against any odds. Now, looking at the sensor data showing 8,000 alien warships, he was not sure courage would be enough. 12 hours passed. Earth did not surrender. Malthois had expected this. He had conquered 400 worlds, and the pattern was always the same. First came denial, then desperate hope, then the demonstration of power that broke all resistance. He gave the order calmly. Almost bored 3 Valoran destroyers broke formation and descended toward Earth. They positioned themselves above Australia, above a city called Sydney. The city sparkled with lights in the night. Home to 10 million souls who had no idea what was coming. The destroyers fired. The beams were white-hot, bright enough to blind satellites. They struck the city for exactly 4 seconds. When they stopped, Sydney was gone. Not destroyed. Not burning. Gone. A crater of molten glass remained. Where millions of people had lived and loved and dreamed, Duhaon watched from orbit. He felt something break inside him, some wall that had held back despair. His crew was screaming, crying, calling for orders. He had none to give. The Valoran transmission returned. Malthois smiled, thin and cruel. You have 12 hours remaining. I trust you understand now. In her laboratory, Dr. Yuna had fallen to her knees. Sydney was gone. Her sister had lived there. Her nieces, gone in for seconds. But even through her tears, even through the grief that threatened to swallow her whole, she noticed something strange. Her instruments were going crazy. Seismic readings from across the Pacific were spiking in patterns she had never seen. The Earth's core temperature was rising, slowly but steadily. She wiped her eyes and looked closer. This was not natural. This was not the result of the attack. This was something else entirely. Thousands of kilometers away. In a deep-sea research station near the Mariana Trench, a young geologist named Jisoo watched her screens with growing confusion. The ocean floor was moving. Not shifting like an earthquake, moving, rising. She called her supervisor, but the line was dead. She called the surface, but everyone was talking about Sydney, about the aliens, about the end of the world. No one cared about strange readings from the bottom of the sea, so Jisoo watched alone as something massive began to climb. From the deepest part of the ocean, something that had been sleeping for a very, very long time. On Sentinel-7, Do-Yan received a strange report. Gravitational anomalies were appearing across the planet, in the Pacific, the Atlantic, beneath the Himalayas, under the Sahara Desert. Something was happening to Earth itself, and then he heard it. Not through his ears, but directly in his mind. A voice, ancient and vast and somehow kind. Do not despair, children of Earth. Your ancestors built me for this moment. The time of awakening has come. Do-Yan looked down at his planet. The clouds were swirling in strange new patterns. The ocean was churning. Lights were appearing in places where no lights should be. High Sovereign Malthoys noticed too. For the first time in centuries, a small seed of doubt planted itself in his mind. He had conquered hundreds of worlds. He had crushed thousands of civilizations, but none of them had ever done this. The ocean was boiling. Jisoo pressed her face against the thick glass window of her research station. Outside, in the crushing darkness of the deep sea, something impossible was happening. The water glowed with strange light. Fish and creatures she had studied for years were fleeing in every direction, driven mad by forces they could not understand. And below, rising from the Mariana Trench, came a shape so large her mind refused to accept it. Metal. Vast stretches of dark metal, covered in symbols that pulsed with blue light. The structure rose slowly, impossibly, pushing aside millions of tons of water like it weighed nothing at all. Jisoo watched as what looked like a building emerged, then realized it was only a small piece of something much larger. Her station shook. Warning alarms screamed. The pressure readings made no sense anymore. She should have been afraid. She should have been running for the escape pod. But instead, she felt a strange calm settle over her, and a voice filled her mind like warm light. Do not fear, child. You are safe. You have always been safe. We built this world to protect you. Across the planet, others heard the same voice. In Tokyo, a retired general named Hyok stopped in the middle of the street as words that were not his own echoed in his skull. In London, a pilot named Suji nearly crashed her helicopter when the voice spoke to her. In a small village in Kenya, in a factory in Brazil, in a hospital in Norway, people from every nation and every walk of life suddenly heard the same ancient speaker, the voice. As people would come to call it, did not explain everything at once. It spoke in gentle pieces, like a parent telling a difficult truth to a child. Millions of years ago, it said, before your kind existed, there was another civilization on this world. They were great builders, great thinkers, great dreamers. They looked up at the stars and saw beauty, but they also saw danger. They knew that one day something terrible would come from the darkness between worlds. Dr. Yuna sat in her laboratory, tears still wet on her cheeks, listening to the voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. They could not stay to protect you. Their time was ending, so they left a gift. They transformed your world itself into a weapon, a shield, a guardian. They buried the technology so deep that no invader would ever detect it, and they created me to watch over you until the time of awakening. The voice paused, and Yuna felt something like sorrow in its tone. Ow. I've waited so long. So many ages, watching your kind grow from simple creatures into something wonderful. I've wanted to speak to you, to help you, to tell you that you were never alone. But I could not wait until the threat arrived. Now it is here. And now, finally, I can fulfill my purpose. In orbit, Captain Dojan watched his sensors go insane. Energy readings that should have been impossible spiked across the planet. The Pacific Ocean was draining into a massive hole that had not existed an hour ago. Mountains were splitting apart. Deserts were sinking, and everywhere structures were emerging. Towers of dark metal rose from the sea. Domes of shimmering energy appeared in empty plains. Shapes that looked like weapons, impossibly large weapons. Pushed through the earth like flowers blooming in fast motion. The Valoran fleet detected it too. High Sovereign Malthois stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the readings with growing unease. His science officers were shouting at each other, unable to explain what was happening on the planet below. What is this? He demanded. What are they doing? No one could answer. In 10,000 years of conquest, the Valoran had never seen anything like this. Malthois made his decision quickly. He had not built an empire by waiting for his enemies to prepare. All ships, he commanded, full assault. Destroy the planet before whatever this is completes itself. 8,000 warships opened fire at once. The sky above Earth turned white. Energy beams and missiles and weapons that had no human name rained down on the planet like the anger of angry gods. Each shot carried enough power to level a city. Together, they carried enough power to crack the world in half. Jisoo screamed as her station was thrown sideways. Yuna covered her head as her laboratory shook. Billions of people looked up at the burning sky and prayed to whatever gods they believed in. And then, something beautiful happened. A light rose from Earth. It started at the points, where the ancient structures had emerged. Thin beams of blue energy that reached toward the sky. The beams connected, spreading like a web, like a net, like a shell forming around the entire planet. The Valoran weapons struck the shell and vanished. Not exploded. Not deflected. Vanished, swallowed by a technology so far beyond them that their most powerful weapons were like raindrops against a mountain. Malthois stared at the readings. His hands trembled. Possible, he whispered. That is impossible. But the voice was not finished. Children of Earth, it announced. And now its tone was different, harder, colder. The voice of something that had been patient for millions of years and would be patient no longer. Watch now. See what your ancestors built for you. See what happens to those who threaten your world. A single beam of light erupted from the Pacific Ocean. It was thin, no wider than a human arm. It moved faster than thought, crossing the distance between Earth and the Valoran fleet in less than a heartbeat. The beam passed through 300 ships without slowing. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ships simply fell apart. They did not explode. They did not burn. They dissolved, coming apart at the molecular level. Transformed from mighty warships into expanding clouds of dust. 300 ships. Millions of Valoran soldiers. Gone in 1 second, on his bridge, Malthois stumbled backward. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had only ever seen in the eyes of his victims. Fear, below. On Earth, the transformation continued. The planet itself was awakening, stretching, preparing for a war that had been written in its bones since before humanity took its first breath. And in her underwater station, Jisoo watched through cracked glass as the impossible structure continued to rise from the trench. And she finally understood what the voice had meant. Earth was not a planet. Earth was a ship, and it was angry. Commander Suji had been a pilot for 12 years. She had flown fighters, helicopters, and experimental aircraft that only a handful of people knew existed. She thought she understood flying. She thought she knew what it meant to be fast, to be powerful, to dance through the sky like a bird made of metal and fire. She was wrong. The craft that rose from the underground hangar was nothing like anything humans had ever built. It was sleek and dark, shaped like a teardrop, covered in the same glowing symbols that marked the ancient structures emerging across Earth. When Suji approached it, following the pull of the voice in her mind, a door opened without sound. Inside, there were no controls, no screens, no buttons or levers or anything she recognized. Just a single seat that seemed to grow from the floor itself. "Sit," the voice said gently. "Trust yourself. Trust what you feel." Suji sat. The moment she did, the craft came alive around her. She felt it like an extension of her own body, like new limbs she had always possessed but never known. She thought about rising, and the craft rose. She thought about speed, and the hangar walls blurred as she shot into the sky faster than any missile. She was not flying the craft. She was the craft. Across the world, others were experiencing the same awakening. In a military base in Korea, an engineer named Byung-ho found himself standing before a console of alien symbols that somehow made perfect sense to him. His fingers moved across surfaces that responded to his thoughts, and information flooded his mind. He understood suddenly how the ancient technology worked. Not completely, but enough. Enough to help in a field in Argentina. A young soldier named Min Jae watched as the ground opened and armor rose from the earth. Not human armor. Something far more advanced, shaped like a second skin, glowing with soft blue light. The voice had chosen him, and he did not understand why. He was nobody special. Just a soldier. Just a man. But when he put on the armor, he became something more. He could feel energy humming through every fiber of the suit. He could see heat signatures and radiation and things the human eye was never meant to detect. When he punched a boulder to test his strength, the rock exploded into powder. "You are not being given weapons," the voice explained to all those it had chosen. "You are being given extensions of yourselves. The technology responds to will, to heart, to the desire to protect. It cannot be used for cruelty. It cannot be turned against the innocent. This was the first law my creators built into every system." High above Earth, the Valoran fleet hung in disarray. 300 ships gone in an instant. Thousands more damaged by the shockwave of that single terrible beam. Malthus had ordered a retreat to safe distance, and now his admirals gathered on his bridge, their gray faces pale with shock. "What is that thing?" one demanded. "Our records show nothing like this. No civilization has ever possessed such power." Elder Priest Varoth, ancient even by Valoran standards, stepped forward. His voice shook as he spoke. "I have read the oldest texts, my sovereign. The forbidden archives that speak of times before our empire, before any empire. They mention a race, builders, shapers, beings who could reshape worlds with their thoughts." "Myths," Malthus snapped. "Children's stories." "I thought so too," Vorath said quietly. "But the texts describe their work. They say the builders did not conquer. They protected. They scattered their creations across the galaxy, hidden, waiting. Seeds of defense planted in young worlds." He looked at the planet on the view screen, at the light spreading across its surface, at the impossible structures rising from its crust. "We have found one of their seeds, my sovereign, and we have made it bloom." Malthus felt cold rage building in his chest. He had ruled for centuries. He had crushed civilizations that dared to resist. He would not, could not, let a single primitive world defy him. "And we destroy it before it finishes awakening," he said. "All ships, maximum firepower, continuous barrage. I want that planet reduced to rubble." The order went out. Every remaining ship in the Valoran fleet, nearly 8,000. Vessels turned their weapons toward Earth. The barrage began. It did not stop for 6 hours. On Earth, people huddled in shelters and basements and underground bunkers. They watched through cameras as the sky burned without pause. They waited for the moment when the shield would fail, when the ancient protection would finally give out. It never came. The shield held. Not just held, but seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. Dr. Yuna, working frantically in her laboratory, finally understood why. "It's absorbing the energy," she shouted into her communicator. The shield isn't just blocking their weapons. It's eating them. It's using their own power to make itself stronger. The voice confirmed her discovery. My creators believe that no weapon should be wasted. Every enemy attack feeds our defenses. The longer they fire, the stronger we become. When the Valoran fleet finally stopped, exhausted and drained, Earth's shield blazed brighter than ever before. And then, for the second time, Earth struck back. This time, it was not a single beam. Weapon arrays across the planet activated simultaneously, firing in coordinated patterns that wove through the Valoran fleet like dancers through a crowd. Ships died by the dozen, by the hundred. Escape pods launched and were ignored. The ancient weapons targeted only military vessels, leaving crew to drift away in safety. Even in war, the builders had believed in mercy. But mercy did not mean weakness. When the firing stopped, half the Valoran fleet was gone. Malthoy stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by silence. His admirals were dead or fled. His ship was damaged, barely functional, and the voice spoke to him directly, piercing his mind with words he could not escape. Leave now and live. Return and die. This is the only warning you will receive. Althois looked at his ruined fleet, at the glowing planet that had humiliated him. He wanted to rage, to swear revenge, to promise destruction. But for the first time in his long life, he saw clearly. He saw what he faced. He ordered the retreat. Below, humanity watched the enemy flee. They cheered and wept and held each other, unable to believe they had survived. But the voice spoke again, and its words silenced the celebration. The battle is won. The war is not. The Empire will return with more ships, more weapons, more hate. If we wait here, we will face the same threat again and again until something breaks through. There is only one way to ensure lasting safety. Captain Doyen listened from orbit, knowing what would come next. We must take the war to them. We must show the galaxy that Earth does not hide, does not cower, does not wait for death. We must fly. Deep beneath the surface, engines that had slept for millions of years began to wake. The Earth moved. It began slowly, a tremor that passed through every mountain and valley and ocean floor. People stumbled in the streets and grabbed walls for support. Animals fled to open ground, sensing something their instincts could not explain. Then, the sound like thunder that never ended, the planet rose. Navigator Hannah was 26 years old. She had spent her life studying mathematics, finding beauty in numbers and equations that others found cold and empty. When the voice touched her mind, it showed her something magnificent, a language of motion, a code written in the fabric of space itself. You understand, the voice said? You see what others cannot. Guide us. And so Hannah sat in a chamber deep beneath the Pacific, surrounded by floating symbols of light. And she plotted a course through the stars. The moon fell away behind them. Earth's orbit, which had held steady for billions of years, was broken. The planet accelerated into the void, pushed by engines buried so deep in the mantle that no human had ever suspected their existence. It should have been chaos. A planet ripping free of its orbit should have caused earthquakes and tidal waves and the death of everything on its surface. But the ancient technology was perfect. Gravity remained stable. The atmosphere stayed in place. Life continued as if nothing had changed, except for the unfamiliar stars that now filled the night sky. Admiral Tywin established a war council in what had been the United Nations building. Now, it was the command center for humanity's counterattack. Screens showed tactical data flooding in from the ancient systems. Star maps that human astronomers had never seen. Fleet positions across thousands of light years. The shape of an empire that had enslaved the galaxy. The Valoran Empire spans 3,000 star systems, the voice explained. They have conquered 400 species. Their fleet numbers over 1 million vessels. For 10,000 years, they have ruled through fear. Taiwan studied the maps with cold eyes. How do we fight that many ships? We do not need to fight them all. We need only break their will. The Empire is held together by belief that the Valoran are invincible, that resistance is futile, that slaves can never be free. Show the galaxy that the Empire can be beaten, and the Empire will collapse from within. Across the stars, the news was already spreading. On a frozen mining world called Kortha, the slaves worked in darkness. They were small beings with 6 limbs and silver skin, bred for labor in environments too harsh for their masters. Their queen, a woman named Solara, had led a resistance movement for 30 years. She had watched it slowly die as hope faded and her people accepted their chains. But now, watching forbidden broadcasts on a hidden screen, she saw something impossible. A planet fighting back. Valoran's ships burning. An empire that had seemed eternal suddenly revealed as mortal. She wept. She had not wept in decades. Send word to every cell, she ordered her lieutenants. The time is coming. Be ready. Similar scenes played out across 1,000 worlds. Species who had forgotten what freedom meant suddenly remembered. Resistance movements that had gone dormant began to stir. The symbol of Earth, a blue and green sphere surrounded by light, became the mark of hope. Malthois knew what was happening. He sat in his palace on the Valoran homeworld, surrounded by advisors who brought only bad news. Rebellions were breaking out across the outer territories. 3 provincial governors had refused to send reinforcements. His own nobles whispered about his failure, about his shame. He had 1 card left to play. Activate the Starkiller, he commanded. His advisors went pale. The Starkiller was ancient technology, predating even the Valoran Empire weapon that could destabilize stars, causing them to explode. It had been used only once before to end a war that threatened the Empire's existence. My sovereign elder priest Vorath said carefully, if we use the Starkiller against Earth's original sun, we will destroy not only their homeworld, but all their colonies in that system. And our own fleet, which is still retreating, ... I know what I am doing, Malthois said coldly. The fleet is a susceptible loss. The colonies are nothing. What matters is destroying that abomination before it reaches us. Activate the weapon. The Starkiller station was hidden in an asteroid belt 3 systems away from Earth's original orbit. It was massive, a machine of destruction that dwarfed even the largest Valoran battleship. As Malthois gave his order, it began to charge. On Earth, the voice detected the energy buildup instantly. They mean to destroy your home star, it announced to the War Council. If the Starkiller fires, Sol will explode within hours. Your original colonies, your moon, everything you left behind will be annihilated. Captain Doyan studied the tactical display. Can we reach it in time? No. Earth cannot move fast enough. But a smaller team might. Commander Suji stepped forward. In the weeks since her awakening, she had trained constantly. Learning the limits of her new craft and her own expanded abilities. I'll go. Minjay joined her, his ancient armor gleaming. We'll need ground forces if we have to board that station. A team of 50 volunteers assembled within the hour. They were pilots and soldiers. Engineers and scientists, ordinary humans made extraordinary by technology they barely understood. They boarded dropships that emerged from hidden hangars across Earth's surface. You have 6 hours, the voice told them. The Starkiller will be fully charged by then. You must reach it, infiltrate it, and shut it down. Suji looked at her team through the shared communication network. 50 people against a weapon that could kill stars. No pressure, someone muttered, and nervous laughter rippled through the channel. The dropships launched. They crossed the void faster than any human vessel had ever traveled, riding currents in space that human science had never discovered. Behind them, Earth continued its journey toward the Valoran homeworld, a planet-sized statement of defiance. Meanwhile, the voice worked on another front. It reached out across the communication networks of a dozen species, offering alliance, offering aid, offering hope. The Korthan responded first, then the Vesh, then the Molar. Species that had been enemies now found common cause. The Empire was vast, but it was built on fear, and fear was fragile. Admiral Taiwan watched the diplomatic channels fill with messages of support. Rebel fleets were gathering. Slave worlds were rising. The galaxy itself was waking up. This is bigger than Earth now, he said quietly. This is about everyone they ever hurt, the voice agreed. That was always the plan. My creators did not build me to protect one world. They built me to light a fire that would never go out. Earth was just the spark. In her dropship, racing toward the Starkiller, Suji thought about what waited ahead. Impossible odds. Almost certain death. The fate of billions depending on 50 ordinary humans. She smiled. If this was what humanity was meant for, then she would face it without fear. The stars blurred around them as they flew toward destiny. The Starkiller hung in the darkness like a metal moon. Suji guided her dropship through the asteroid field, weaving between rocks the size of mountains. Behind her, 49 other craft followed in perfect formation. Ahead, the weapon station pulsed with terrible light, energy building toward the moment when it would reach across space and murder a star. For hours remaining, the voice announced. The station is heavily defended. I am detecting 300 Valoran warships in protective formation.
Ow.
Minjay checked his armor systems. 300 ships against 50 of us. I've faced worse odds. When? Someone asked. I haven't, but it sounded good. More nervous laughter. These were humans facing the end of everything they knew. Humor was all they had left. The Valoran detected them almost immediately. Ships broke formation to intercept, weapons charging. Suji felt her craft respond to her thoughts. Dancing between energy beams that would have vaporized any human fighter, the ancient technology was magnificent. But it was not invincible. One dropship took a direct hit and vanished in a flash of light. Then another. Suji watched the team's numbers drop 48, 45, 42 and pushed herself faster. Get us to that station, she shouted into the communication channel. That's all that matters. Get us there. 23 dropships made it through. They crashed through the Starkiller's docking bay in a storm of fire and shattered metal. Ancient shields absorbing impacts that should have killed everyone aboard. Minjay was first out. His armor moved like it was part of his body, and his weapons, built into the suit itself, fired with devastating precision. Valoran soldiers fell before him in waves. They had never faced anything like this. Their weapons bounced off his shield. Their armor crumbled under his strikes. Behind him, the rest of the team poured out. Engineers headed for the station's core, guided by the voice. Soldiers formed a defensive perimeter. Suji led a squad through twisting corridors, following a path that appeared in her mind like a memory she had never made. The main power control is ahead, the voice told her. Shut it down, and the Starkiller cannot fire. 2 hours left, the station fought back. Security systems activated. Doors sealed. Traps triggered. The team took casualties with every step forward. Brave men and women would volunteer to save a species that would never know their names. Minjay fell, defending a critical junction. His armor held, but barely. He lay against a wall, watching his squad move on without him, and smiled. He had done his part. Suji reached the control room with only 6 people left. Inside, a dozen Valoran engineers worked frantically at consoles, trying to accelerate the charging sequence. They looked up as the humans entered, terror on their gray faces. Stand down, Suji ordered. This ends now. One engineer, braver or more foolish than the others, reached for a weapon. He never touched it. 30 minutes remained when the voice spoke again, its tone different, heavier. The controls are locked. The charging sequence cannot be stopped by normal means. There is only one option remaining. Suji's blood went cold. What option? I must enter the system directly. Fragment my consciousness into their network and override the commands from within. It will take all of me. There will be nothing left. Silence fell over the surviving team members. They understood what the voice was saying. The ancient intelligence that had protected humanity, that had guided them through impossible odds, was offering to die for them. There has to be another way, Suji said. There is not, and I do not regret this. I have watched over your kind for millions of years. I have seen you grow from simple creatures into something beautiful. I believe in what you will become. That belief is worth any price. The voice paused, and when it spoke again, its words reached every human mind on Earth. Children of Earth, My time ends here, but yours is just beginning. You do not need me anymore. You do not need guardians or protectors or ancient machines to fight your battles. You have proven what you are. You have proven that humanity does not surrender, does not bow, does not yield. Carry that truth forward. Light the fire I started in worlds I will never see. Be worthy of the gift your ancestors left you. And then the voice was gone. The Starkiller's lights flickered. The charging sequence reversed. Alarms screamed as energy drained away instead of building. The station began to tear itself apart. Systems failing in cascading waves, Suji grabbed the surviving team members and ran. They barely made it to their dropships. The station exploded behind them as they fled, a silent blossom of light in the void. 300 Valoran ships, caught in the blast radius, vanished with it. On Earth, people wept. They had felt the voice's final message. They had felt it fade from their minds like a sunset cooling into night. Something precious was gone forever. But there was no time to mourn. Earth arrived at the Valoran. Homeworld 3 days later, the planet ship took position in orbit, its weapons powered and ready. Below, 1 billion Valoran looked up at the impossible Cedo world hanging above. Them, like judgment itself, Malthois refused to surrender. He called for resistance, for martyrdom, for anything except the admission of defeat. His own guards dragged him from his throne room and handed him to the human forces. Admiral Taiwan stood over the fallen emperor. The man who had ordered Sydney destroyed? The man who had enslaved a galaxy? He looked small now, gray and trembling. Your empire's over, Taiwan said simply. Your fleets are scattered. Your slaves are free. You will stand trial for your crimes. The official surrender came within the hour, 1 year later. Jisoo stood in a great hall filled with beings from 100 worlds. She had been chosen as humanity's first official ambassador, the young geologist, who had watched the awakening begin from the bottom of the sea. Behind her, through massive windows, Earth floated among unfamiliar stars. The planet had chosen this location carefully, point equidistant from a dozen civilizations that had joined the new galactic coalition. The scars of transformation still marked its surface, but life continued as it always had. People were born and died and loved and dreamed even as their worlds sailed through the cosmos. We were alone once, Jisoo said to the assembled representatives. Afraid, small. We thought the universe was empty, and we were wrong. We thought we were weak, and we were wrong about that too. She looked out at the faces before her, gray and silver and blue and gold. Shapes that were nothing like human but somehow no longer seemed strange. The voice told us something before it died. It said that its creators built it to light a fire that would never go out. Earth was just the spark. Now the fire burns in all of you. In every world that threw off its chains. In every species that stood up and said no more, she smiled. And it was the smile of a species that had faced extinction and refused to die. We will protect this coalition. We will defend every member against any threat. Not because we want to rule, but because we know what it means to be small and afraid. We know what it means to need help. And we will never, ever let anyone face that darkness alone. Outside, Earth gleamed in the light of foreign stars, a world transformed, a weapon at rest. A home to billions who had learned the truth about themselves. Humanity was no longer alone, and they would never bow again.